that they have messed up on this one because they're following rather than leading. And there is, it appears to be a gap. And I'm not a fan of a witch hunt. I know anyone can make an allegation, and we know that, you know, sometimes completely untrue allegations have been made about people. Why would you name somebody if you haven't established an absolute truth? But there is a point that's wider than that. These are allegations that I keep saying it, potentially could be criminal. And if they are criminal in the way it's been described, it appears by the mother in this case, they would have a sexual sexual criminality component to the charges against this person. And that would and should be really enough. It happens in most areas that if you are suspected of something like that, however harsh that might be, then you're stood down. You're not going to be persecuted. There'll be an investigation, but you're stood down. Because the horror of not being stood down, and it turns out to be true, it far outbalances taking the other course of action. And it looks as if, I mean, the BBC, I think the BBC are kind of claiming that they tried to get in touch with the family after they were first alerted to it and couldn't get in touch. But it appears that there was a gap. It appears that there was a moment in all of this where the person concerned remained on air. We hear stories that they were out and about at social functions with bosses. Those stories are out there as well. But the BBC didn't do anything. And I get the sense that this is in terms of the presenter and what this presenter may or may not have done, that's largely a separate thing. In terms of the trust in our state broadcaster, I'm afraid it's taken, and rightly so, another absolute pounding here. Because they have got form in this area. You can't let it go. You can't let what happened with Martin Bashir go as an obvious example. McAlpine, you can't just let it go. I mean, there are others I could mention in all of this. It's sloppy, it's bad. This is the state broadcaster. They should, I would have thought that very early on, again, given the potential for sexual criminality in this case, that one of the first ports of call would have been the police. And if it's true that they tried to get hold of this mother and couldn't, then they would have surely gone to the police and said, look, we've had an allegation that may well be, you know, horrific. I mean, the potential of that allegation, by the way, potentially, is that somebody could go to jail for a maximum of 10 years, for goodness sake. Because whilst the age of consent might be 16, the distribution or the possession of a person under the age of 18, is a criminal offence, and it's treated seriously. So when they got a whiff of that aspect of it, why were they only talking to the police today, as I understand it? So when I ask the question, do you trust the BBC? This is not a BBC bashing exercise. Our last guest, I think, was testament to that. He's a stalwart defender, a lifelong BBC staffer. And that was his view, that they are not leading on this and should have been. And this is a massive department. This is a massive British employer. It's a global brand. It's the biggest broadcaster on the planet. And we pay for it. So yes, I do want answers. I want a response. I want a robust and honest and diligent investigation. But I want to know quicker than 7 weeks after it started to happen. There should have been a press conference on this. And now we've got this kind of curious situation where what are we waiting for? Tim Davie to tell us more? And as John Mayer suggested, he said he's heard the possibility that the person themselves might come out and make a statement. Because right now, that individual will be weighing up how do you limit this? How do you limit the damage of this? And you can almost hear at the press conference, nothing happened in terms of photos, while this person was under 18, never paid any money for specifically all of that. And yeah, it's an error. I made a mistake. It looks filthy, and I'm sorry. And I also know I'll never work again, because the last point is absolutely the upshot of this.